Now, let's also just spend a little bit of time talking about the attacks on alternative media and alternative tech platforms. It's a subject close to my heart. Because obviously, as tech evolves, and it's not even just about evolving, it's about someone might not even do something better than someone else, but it's like the right place to be at the time. You know, it's kind of like Dig and Reddit. They're not so far removed, and they still ain't. I mean, like, Reddit's barely evolved at all from where it started. They haven't, you know, they make no money. They're a trash fucking AstroTurf shithole now. They're way worse than Dig ever was at its worst point, but people migrated because it was the place to be. Basically, you know, what happened with Dig if you weren't around? Dig used to be an aggregator, like Reddit was, so you would find cool stuff on it. It's Dig, D-I-G-G. And then super users could basically amp up their content, right? And so everything became promoted. And people were going, well, this isn't organic. This isn't very organic. We must go somewhere organic, and Reddit was coming up at the time. You know, and they had a free speech ethos, and they said, we're never going to allow this. We're never going to allow people to, like, promote their stuff. It's why they were so sanctimonious about, vote brigading, vote brigading. It's a TOS on a website, you mad cunts. Calm the fuck down. But it's why all the staff came in. Cheers for the gifted subs, Carv. It's why all of the staff were, like, so sanctimonious about that stuff. They really thought they were changing the world, which, by the way, that guy who got fucking murked in prison, killed himself, that guy, Aaron Schwartz, he was a guy who actually walked the walk and talked the fucking talk and was a good guy. Reddit's been garbage ever since he fucking died. Anyway, of course now Reddit has become worse than Dig ever was. It's all AstroTurfed, it's all bullshit, and we're all just waiting for another better aggregation site to come along, one that looks nice, one that does it better, one that hasn't been hijacked by the DNC with bullshit like fucking Correct the Record, you know, whatever it is, right? And so we're all waiting for that. When it comes along, it's going to come along, and we're all going to be there, and Reddit will just drift back into the past as, you know, an embarrassment. That is the way of things. So sometimes you have to jump into stuff. Sometimes you have to create an account on a fucking website that you're never even going to use, but it might blow up one day and you need that. It's like, I've got a Minds account. You know, I've got a Minds account. I think I even signed up to the beta of, sorry, I say beta because I'm British, but if you don't say beta, Americans get fucking confused and start scratching their head. So I signed up to the beta of that Jordan Peterson website that he made or whatever the fuck, like, you know, because you never know what's going to pop off, and you got to be there, right? You know what I mean? You got to be there. So that's what I'm doing. Anyhow, you never know what's going to be the next big social media platform, but let me tell you, that the journalists, the Bluechecks, the people who have power because of Twitter's popularity and what Twitter is, man alive, they will not let any of these platforms flourish. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole Parler thing. I might if I have time, if I can be bothered, because that's important. But I'm certainly going to talk about some of the new emerging tech that is being attacked by these journalists. Just to explain it to you, okay, these journalists have amassed lots of followings on Twitter, and it's even being said now by journalists who've left prominent newspapers like the New York Times, like Barry Weiss and people like this. They've left and said that the editorial board care more about what's being said on Twitter, tweets, than any sort of journalistic ethics or what's coming out of the newsroom. Twitter is the editorial board, essentially. That's where we're at. That's where these journalists are at. And they love having that power, and they love having that influence. And it's there in games journalism, like we saw recently with that whole Harry Potter debacle. Oh, no! He said Gamergate was a consumer revolution instead of pretending it was a proto-fascist movement that was funded by Putin and Steve Bannon to give us Donald Trump in the White House. Why didn't anybody listen and stop it? The fact that he said that, by the way, made him a pariah, and at the last count was subject to 36 separate hit pieces about why he should lose his job. That's what they do. They're in Slack groups, they're in Discords, right? It's what they do, okay? They sit there, they talk to each other, and they coordinate their coverage. And increasingly, these up-and-coming, like, Bluecheck types, they've been driving out the traditional legacy journalists. You know, the ones that actually have, like, formal training and shit like that. They've been driving them out of the newsrooms, and this is why your newspapers are garbage right now. It's why, you've seen that meme where you talk about BuzzFeed journalists and how they'll never work for the New York Times. They have to live with it. You've seen that green text. Well, they hired the guy from BuzzFeed. They hired Ben from BuzzFeed. That's where we're at. It's a fucking shambles. So, because they've amassed this power, they do not want to surrender said power. And so, anytime a new website comes along, anytime a threat to that comes along, the journalists get together. Ooh, have you seen this? Ooh, have you seen that? Ooh. And they decide to say it's dangerous. So, this has been happening with a number of websites that are relevant to my interests, frankly. Substack, right? Substack. If you don't know what Substack is, it's essentially the same as Medium, right? It's not reinventing the fucking wheel. Difference is it's got tools for subscriptions. I can set prices on it. You know, so I can basically create a blog and charge you for it. I also can run ads on it. So it enables me to monetize my writing. That's what Substack is. And as a result of it, finally, for the first time in a long time, prominent journalists like Glenn Greenwald or that Matty Iglesias, or however you say his name, they can take the leap when they get pressured in the boardroom, when the wokes are bullying them and they say, yeah, I don't want to come along for this. I'm sorry. I like a lot of your ideas. I just don't want to come along for the whole dogmatic thing. And I don't want to be compelled to say things that are absurd to me aren't absurd to me. So I'm out. They can leave. They have an option. And so you see, Matt Taibbi as well. Is another one. You know, these people can leave the problems in the newsroom and go to Substack because they're already popular. They already have a following. And, you know, Glenn Greenwald's the best example. Glenn Greenwald, love him or hate him, right? And I can understand why he's a divisive figure. He broke one of the biggest stories of, certainly in my lifetime. He broke my generation's Watergate, essentially. And that will always make him worthy of reverence to me, no matter what bad takes he has on social media or, you know, bad takes, opinions I disagree with. Glenn Greenwald broke one of the biggest stories of all time, and it should have had an even more profound impact than it did with, you know, what Kevin Snowden revealed about America and the state and how it's spying on its citizens, for which he is still in exile. Like he's a criminal instead of a hero. But anyway, Glenn Greenwald is great. And Glenn Greenwald... did I say Kevin Snowden? I don't even know where the fuck I pulled that from. Kevin? Sorry. Edward, obviously. Why was I even thinking of a Kevin? Kevin Spacey? I don't know. Whatever. So anyway, Edward Snowden, not Kevin. But, you know, it's great that 30 of you all typed it in the chat and corrected me when it's clearly a brain fart and you know what I'm talking about. Very, very cool. Keep doing that in life and see how many meaningful relationships you're able to tie down instead of being remembered as that pretentious bore. Just a little tip for you guys. Anyway. Glenn Greenwald got challenged on an article he wanted to publish as a co-founder of a publication called The Intercept. And he decided to end up, he felt that strongly about it because it was anti-Biden and this was still when the election was up in the air. And so his editors said, Glenn, yeah, no, I don't want to, this is too critical of Biden. I don't want to run it. You should change this, you should change that. And Glenn said, this is ridiculous, I'm sick of this shit, I'm out. And he went to Substack and instantly became the biggest journalist over there. It was a great move. He's making more money there probably than he did even as a co-founder of The Intercept. And it blew up the platform and a lot of people have moved across. The other one I'm sure you'll have heard of as well recently, Clubhouse. Clubhouse. You might have heard of Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse, it's basically Discord for twats. In the same way that LinkedIn is kind of like Facebook for twats. But what it is if you get invited to Clubhouse, and it's meant to be like, that's its whole shtick, is that it's like, it's invite only. But actually, you can just pay £20 and just jump the queue. Like, I could just be on there tomorrow. But basically what it is people can come and talk and do like a town hall, if you want to think of it that way, and anybody else on the platform can jump in and listen to me speak, and I can mute people or unmute them and have them talk to me and move them around, and you can have all these conversations, and it's meant to be bringing all these great minds together. That's how they're framing it. But anyway, obviously we do all those things anyway. On Discord, like I jump on my fucking Discord right now, pull anyone on my Discord into a voice chat and start lecturing them about, the Nietzschean philosophy about eternal recurrence. I can do all of those. I could do that. Right? So, but Clubhouse, like I say, it's just for twats, basically. It's just for twats. So, and I might get on there for banter. Because I don't like feeling left out. And as I just said, you want to be on this platform. The journalists are going nuts about it. The journalists are going nuts about these platforms existing because suddenly Twitter ain't top dog, and that's actually really the only place they hold power. Twitter has become such an influential fucking app, which is just such a bizarre concept, that the journalists hate it when anything comes and challenges it, so they go and they write insane hit pieces about these new platforms. Let me just show you something, by the way. Here we go. This was, it started, Taylor Lorenz has had a B&up on it. Now, if you don't know who Taylor Lorenz is, Taylor Lorenz is one of the most privileged journalists out there. She's from a very wealthy background, went to a very prominent school, had it all laid on a plate, and she makes her living basically writing about TikTok, if you can even believe that. Like, I write about esports. Right? I consider myself a sports journalist. It's certainly not the most noble type of journalism, but within that field, I've certainly tackled big stories. She writes about, like, an example of one of her stories is that a young teenage girl created a popular dance on TikTok that was used by someone else. And we must credit the original choreographer. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The joke about Taylor Lorenz is she is the teenage TikTok journalist. That's what they all call her. Herself a grown woman and probably my age. So, if I was at a paper and someone said to me, "Hey, Rich, you're down with the kids. You do esports and that. You wanna write about TikTok today?" Nah, you're all right. I'll just fucking leave. That's all the same. I'll just quit this job for even you asking that. So, but fine. Anyway. So, she's had a massive B&up on it about certain people. And she kind of is the patient zero of the disinformation campaign that came up against Clubhouse. She went after somebody that she had a personal grievance with, practicing what is essentially revenge journalism, which, by the way, she is a mean-spirited person with her Twitter feed. She will often, tell lies or exaggerations about people on Twitter. She'll never own up to it. She'll just set herself to protective, piece the fuck out, let it ride out, and then come back like nothing's happened. And like a lot of these big Twitter accounts, once they get to about 500,000, they realize that actually you don't even need to proactively dogpile people. You just throw a Twitter out there and everyone's lives is so empty and meaningless, especially during a pandemic. Everyone's just looking for someone to fucking dogpile at the best of times, even if it's like a moderate outrage. What? You said Jaffa cakes aren't the best biscuit? Right, well, that's it. Where do you live? Where's your job? Yeah, people are just living like that right now because everyone's out with their goddamn minds. But anyway, she falsely accused someone of using the R slur. A word we can still technically say on Twitch, but I just won't bother. We're already sailing close to the wind. So P Marker just openly using the R slur on Clubhouse tonight, and not one other person in the room called him on it or said anything. You know, this is how she is using her time. Now, if you don't know who P. Marker is, that's Mark Andreessen, who is... he's like an American entrepreneur. She's had a real bee in her bonnet about him. She's going after him. And then, look, somebody came up later. Thanks for clarifying that it was Felicia saying that word rather than Mark, as many in the room heard it. I hope you can understand how some people in the room felt hearing it. So there's a broader context here that we'll get to in a second. But she just openly lied. She claimed to have heard it. But how do you confuse the voice of Mark Andreessen and Felicia? You're probably going to have, I would say, different voices, probably. And because she's Taylor Lorenz of the New York Times, rather than just say, I heard it from secondhand information and I got it wrong and I should know better, and this is actually a grotesque ethical violation to report something as being factual when it was fed to me as secondhand information, she just said, thanks for clarifying. No. You need to issue a correction and a retraction. That's how this game works, darling. Come on. You know that. You've had the training. You went to the college. I know it. You know it. So why? Well, no. Rather than Mark, many in the room heard it that way. No, they didn't. No one's making that mistake. No one was blowing it up. You did. You had a petty grievance with someone. You're pissed off about Clubhouse. You want to be the fucking hot shit. And, you know, I'm the TikTok journalist, and I didn't get invited first to Clubhouse, and I don't like Mark Andreessen. This is how you know, these are your journalists. These are not serious people. But it was the first... It was the first New York Times kind of piece of disinformation about Clubhouse, and naturally, where one journalist goes, where one journalist goes, others will follow, and so you end up with this. This is the second time it happened. This was. This is from Pegobry on Twitter. It's fascinating to watch a New York Times disinformation campaign play out in real time. I'm in the room. Literally, the only thing Mark said was, I don't want to talk, I'm here to listen. The stuff about DMing her, etc. was clearly jokes and understood by everyone as such. And this, as you can see here, Paul Burt, just a normal Friday where one of the most powerful VCs in the world is talking about coordinating organized harassment of a tech journalist. This is Clubhouse, and this is, of course, this is a response to Taylor Lorenz deliberately lying about someone she doesn't like, and he made a joke and said that, I'm gonna DM her about that. And obviously, it's just a joke. So now someone else from the New York Times is like, this is a powerful man attacking a female colleague. No, she did it first. She attacked him first. She lied about him in the public domain first. If we had any standards left in journalism, she would be suspended, pending an investigation, and a retraction would have been issued. Instead, she got to go protected for 4 hours and come back, and that's the only penalty these people fucking face. And I'm sure it was torturous for her, because she's a fucking narcissistic attention seeker, like all journalists are right now. In fact, one of the big problems at the core of American journalism right now is that they all want to be the story. They all want the fucking book deals. You know, think Jim Acosta fucking trying to wrestle a microphone out of a fucking White House intern's hand, because he gets to ask more questions than every other journalist in the room. Think about his banner on Twitter, which is him looking at a picture of him while he sat there in his avatar looking up at him. Like, how many more degrees of fucking narcissism do these fucking journalists need to fucking be on? You know, before people realize there's a real problem here. Anyway. So, because two New York Times journalists have a bee in their bonnet about the CEO having a conversation, that CEO, that TikTok TikTok teenage journalist extraordinaire Taylor Lorenz doesn't like, having a conversation. You know, the whole point of Clubhouse is to connect people. I get to listen to people of expertise I might not get to listen to any other way, right? That's the whole point of the app. Well, what do you think they do? Do you think they just take it on the chin and walk away from another embarrassing episode? Of course not. They're journalists. The only thing journalists know how to do now is be ridiculous, and when you ridicule them for being ridiculous, they weaponize their platform to try and ruin your life. That is it. That is the modus operandi of the American journalist. And so you end up with this. The New York Times. Ooh, unfettered conversations. Unfettered conversation. The biggest threat to American society. Unfettered conversations are taking place on Clubhouse, an invitation-only app that lets people gather in audio chat rooms. The platform has exploded in popularity despite grappling with concerns over harassment, the ones they invented, misinformation, and privacy. Now, as many of you like to point out, I'm a fucking boomer, aren't I, right? So I go, I go back, don't I? I go back to even before the internet. Fucking hell, Richard, you must be ancient. It's not ancient history, but okay, I'll let you live the fucking pretense. You'll be lucky to live as long. If you went through the changes and the shit I'd seen. But anyway, so, unfettered conversation. Unfettered conversation. Think about that. When you go to a bar with your friends, remember that? The good old days, 2019. When you go to a bar with your friends, you have an unfettered conversation. What's dangerous about it? If I talk to you on a disco about having an unfettered conversation, unfettered. Why does it need to be fettered? Why do we need to suppress it? What is dangerous about me talking to someone else without somebody getting in the way of that conversation? I mean, obviously, as I explained, the real game that's being played here is we can't have people moving away from Twitter and gaining prominence on a platform we don't control. Because as I've done multiple videos on Twitter, and I'll show you at the end of this bit, Twitter bends over backwards to do whatever the Bluecheck journalists want. Whatever they want. Suppress the New York Post, that's fine, right? But if someone from the New York Times gets upset about another platform or another story or another Twitter account, run for your life, because Twitter will they just backchannel you. Twitter will do whatever these people say, because the reason Twitter is as a platform works and has influence is essentially because it's a simpatico. It's a symbiotic relationship. So, unfettered conversation. And then obviously The Verge waded in, right? And they came up with, this. The creators of the buzzy audio app Clubhouse made a depressingly common mistake. The $100 million startup is learning the hard way. Content moderation needs to come first. No, it doesn't. Actually, it almost universally has to come, not even second, third, fourth, fifth, or fucking sixth. The idea that out of the gates, my app has to come with ways to fucking suppress people using the app for what the app is for is absolutely absurd. It doesn't make any business sense. Hey guys, I've just created this new app. The gimmick is anybody from all over the world can connect and talk to one another, except you, and you. Oh, and definitely you. Oh, and actually, if there's anyone on it you don't like, if they get 10 votes, they're just kicked off the platform. Go, have at it. Watch that platform grow. But it was just repeated verbatim that she'd experienced harassment. No, you did the classic. You lied about somebody. People pointed out you were a liar. You didn't like that criticism, retreated away so people couldn't point it out anymore by directly linking to the tweets you lied in. Then you deleted the tweets, came back, made up a new story, and then just carried on with your life. And in fact, the only person who was actually harmed in any meaningful way was the person you lied about. But fortunately for them, they're billionaires, so you're not even shit on their shoes. So go fucking figure. And you do start to realize, they occasionally, they put enough breadcrumbs down to make you realize what's going on. Like you get this Silicon Valley Clubhouse and the cult of VC victimhood. And the way they frame it in this Verge article is that basically any form of moderation, people suppressing the point of the app, people writing negative things about the app, people trying to hurt their business by implying the app, and what'll come next? It'll be, remember this, Clubhouse is a haven for white supremacists. As soon as it's open to all or whatever, that's coming next. That'll be the next thing. Richard Spencer has Clubhouse account. What does that mean about the platform? Just watch this space. It's going to be, it's obviously going to come. You can't even build a fucking stage these days without it being racist. So, but basically the entire premise of this article, which I won't bore you because, it's two people writing, so they've really gone to town on it to try and explain why the VC people, the CEOs were saying, yeah, can you not smear and lie about the app and imply that it's bad in some way? They're playing victimhood, not the journalists that lied about being harassed. Cool. Very, very cool. And so there was an interesting article over on Reason.com, another publication you're not supposed to read, where it's journalists worried about people having conversations on Clubhouse. And you can see that they made a point about that, we need to crack down on it. We must crack down on this app, a lot of people were saying, because if people are just allowed to talk to one another without some sort of monitoring going on, then who knows what kind of ideas are going to be transmitted. And so this got into the whole, this is sort of like what the Chinese Communist Party does. And then people didn't like that very much. Oh, no, it's totally different. It's totally different. It's not the state monitoring you. It's just us, incredibly powerful and influential people who work hand in hand lockstep with the state. It's completely different. It's not like the Stasi. Don't worry about it. Then you had, obviously, Substack, which I've talked about and explained what Substack is, giving you a history there. They're going after that too. There's a number of articles, but I won't bore you with them. I'll summarize it with this tweet. This is from Dr. Sarah T. Roberts, the professor at UCLA, who says Substack is a dangerous direct threat to traditional news media, but more importantly, it is a threat to journalism. Right? So there is so many flaws in this argument. Like it's frankly embarrassing that somebody like me needs to point things out to a professor at an institution like UCLA. But I'm going to go through the tweets, but I'll just go through with this. So it's a direct threat to traditional news media. Good. Traditional news media as a business has absolutely stagnated. Almost all of the news outlets, by the way, are like fucking loss leaders. All of the publications online are still living in the fucking late 90s when it comes to business models. And something has got to give and something has got to change. Right? So why should any business be immune to competition? It seems completely ridiculous. But fine, I get that isn't your main point, because you say, but more importantly, it is a threat to journalism. How could this possibly be true. Let me tell you what's a threat to journalism. So first of all, a threat to journalism is when corporate entities control newsrooms, like they do now almost exclusively at every big newsroom in America, and we all go, oh, no, they don't have any editorial input. Of course they do. How brutal a story about Amazon's work and practice will the Washington Post really run? Because I read the token Washington Post coverage about some bad stuff about Amazon, and it was very bland compared to how some other outlets covered it. But anyway, that's by the by. One of the other problems with journalism right now is the people that drive the views very often aren't sort of even financially rewarded. They're not making a lot of money. They can't take time away from doing garbage stories that drive clicks to do real work. And so as a result of that, why would it be a threat to journalism that journalists with followings can monetize their work independently away from editorial boards that can stop them telling the big truths, away from corporate influence that can suppress them, and get paid for it? That is typically an impossibility outside of you going and writing a book or working for an unbelievable publication like what you used to get in the 70s, where, and 80s, where certain publications would publish all sorts, types of, views, get writers from all over the political spectrum, all over the world. Even fucking like 70s Playboy was a publication that has more journalistic value than the average mainstream media website does these days. So how is it a bad thing? So she does go on to elaborate on her ideas. Great, you say. Journalism needs to be disrupted. But here's the problem. Journalists make their name doing reporting. You can see she's very high functioning. This is governed by norms and practices and by ethics. Flawed and not always achieved. True. Ethics in journalism. Not for a while. But the present and guiding what newsrooms do in every way? Yes. People not inside journalism or media may not know the specifics, but they often have a nebulous sense there are norms. Independence, disclosure of compromise, editorial oversight, and vetting the reporting. That's what makes them trust enough to buy and read or watch. What is much less obvious to them is what it means when there is a reporter who makes her name in a newsroom and then leaves for Substack or any analog, taking that name, reputation earned from work done in the context I just stated, and starting an outlet in which they are both reporter and editor without oversight and in a subscription model that puts their material under the cloak of darkness. It is the allure of skirting those norms for quicker, dirtier reports, as well as the big money that draws them. Not only are they earning off the subscription model, many high-profile writers are paid directly by Substack to be exclusive, it's the influencer model. So, your initial rejection would sit easily with me if it wasn't for because I don't like the influencer model. The clue's in the name. If you're an influencer, you are selling influence. Therefore, it means you have no moral code, essentially. You can buy my influence. Like, imagine that. And I'm supposed to be an influencer. I don't like that label. I don't want that label. I don't want to sell my influence. It's why I get barely any sponsors or have a handful of sponsors. You can go one day. I'll have to get the rivalry guys on just to say about the unbelievable how hard they had to work to get me to endorse them, right? I was grilling them in the interviews. You know what I mean? So, anyway, the problem you've got is the traditional newsroom has failed. The traditional newsroom has absolutely failed to not have these errors or oversights and problems occur. We know this. How many falsehoods have mainstream media outlets published in the last, 4 or 5 years? I scripted a video I never recorded where I took an 18-month period of coverage of Donald Trump and I took every story that was provably false. And let me just see if I've still got it, actually. Yes, that's why. Hang on, yeah, I do have it. Right. So, in 18 months, I have. I'm going to count the stories. This is this is from all mainstream media outlets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. 49 in 18. In fact, actually, this isn't even 18 months, I don't think. No, that's in 1 year. 49 stories provably false in 12 months. So when that is a norm, right? When that is what is happening in the modern newsroom as things are today, the model's failed. The journalists aren't building a reputation and then leaving. They're working in newsrooms that have become an absolute fucking embarrassment and actually harms your reputation to be associated with that. By the way, remember, CNN ran a fucking story that was completely wrong, right, about they finally thought they'd cracked the Russian collusion and claimed that somebody associated with the Trump campaign definitely had got payments from Russia. And they had to fire 3 fucking journalists over it because not even CNN could ride that embarrassment out. It was a fucking legal liability for one. That story, journalists don't even report on their own inadequacies and their own failings anymore. Used to be, again, and I've not come up and worked at an international level newspaper or a newsroom, but it used to be, there was this sort of sense among journalists that if one journalist went out and got it wrong, right, they had to be excommunicated because it hurts us all. When you take the mantle of being a journalist and you say, I'm going to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, essentially, and give it to people, give it to the public, and when it's in their interests for me to do so. It's like you're taking on a higher calling, and you must abide by the rules and ethics, and you must get it right. And if you get it wrong, it's such a cardinal sin, you must absolutely apologize and atone. And generally that atonement means there has to be a reprisal. You have to at least lose your job and go out into the wilderness for a while. And any journalist can get it wrong. It can happen to anybody. Right? But it happens all the fucking time now, and journalists just laugh it off. In fact, knowingly wink at each other as if to say, yeah, that one wasn't really wrong, was it? That wasn't a mistake. You deliberately did that. And that's a problem. That's a problem that we've now had a cultural rot at the heart of journalism where people have said that basically it's okay to tell lies because the orange man's bad, or it's okay to tell lies against the GOP, or it's okay to tell lies against this entity. It's okay to tell lies about these billionaires. It's okay to tell lies about these politicians. It's okay to tell lies about this public figure. It's never okay to tell those lies as a journalist, is it? But they have made so many excuses now. There's no way back for them. There's no way back for them. We need a cultural revolution in journalism to get back to truth-telling, and Substack represents the best idea we've had in a while. That is independent journalists being able to monetize their work, and when no one's going to some fucking shitty little intern journalist that had one story at CNN, they got their first byline. We're talking about heavy fucking hitters. We're talking about Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, Matt Iglesias, he was at Vox, whatever. But we're talking about people who have at least had experience, written many stories, had many things blow up, and I'm leaving out a ton of names. What's the problem? Glenn Greenwald has worked as an editor. You're telling me he's not fit to edit his own work? You're telling me, if you go watch that documentary about him and Edward Snowden, or Kevin as I like to call him, right? If you go watch that documentary, watch how he labours over it. Watch how stressed the fuck out he is about how he wants to get it fucking accurate and he wants it to be truth and it's not an elaborate hoax and he can't believe what he's seeing and he's back and he's forth and it's killing him and eating him up inside. Because that's what you do. By the way, Glenn Greenwald, a married gay man who was vehemently anti-Bush, exposed the Snowden story, has raged against Bolsonaro in Brazil where he lives. They say, because he's willing to go on Fox News, he's a right-wing demagogue now. You know, don't tell me that, oh, just stay in the newsrooms, it's fine, Substack's the problem. Nah, Substack ain't the fucking problem. Journalists are the problem. Journalism's the problem. Particularly American journalism. It's absolutely absurd what they're saying. But anyway, let me just get back to this. The gatekeeping that goes on around these platforms, where they're trying to actively destroy them and stop people coming in, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Jesse Singal, it's crazy to me, by the way, because the running joke back in the Gamergate days, you know, Vietnam, as the games journalists call it, back in the Gamergate days, he was a bit of a running joke, and they used to call him Virtue Single, you know, like Virtue Signal. But he's had a bit of a renaissance, and I really like his work, and I really respect his opinions. I'm always hoping one day to get him on the Richard Lewis show. Remember that thing I used to do? He pointed out this a while ago, and you can see where it's coming from. It's now the default position among most progressive journalists. This was in November. That companies like Substack need to do a better job protecting readers from themselves and have a duty to censor writers they, as in the journalists, find too offensive to publish. You know, this is in an article. This was in the Columbia Journalism Review. This is what they're saying. Substack is bad because they don't want to lose their power and lose their influence. That's what it's all about. After all, Time Magazine gave the game away. Time Magazine completely tipped the gaff. There's an article, read it, but I won't on stream for you. The Capitol attack, impeachment, and GameStop make it clear. 2021 is shaping up to be the year of the moderator. These people will not relinquish their influence just by natural forces. The natural ebb and flow of tech, the natural ebb and flow of time, the natural ebb and flow of, like, certain people at certain points coming up with good ideas or good movements and then being thrust into prominence and capitalizing on it. They will not do it. They want a team of moderators at every major company to suppress anything that they find objectionable. And the GameStop stuff, by the way. Oh, I haven't even touched on that. I'm saving that one for a rainy day. The GameStop stuff was absolutely outrageous. A bunch of plebs essentially trying to game the system the same way hedge funds have been gaming the system for fucking years. And actually making money. And yeah, the downside was they brought a bunch of idiots along for the ride and they lost a ton of money. But that's no different, by the way, to any form of market manipulation. You see it all the time with the cryptocurrency market. Just a bunch of idiots getting fucking manipulated while people have already got their position secure, you know. And they don't hold, by the way, guys. No, they sell. That was the game from the start, you fucking clowns. But anyway, these journalists, these media outlets, they want all of the platforms they use to oppressively thrust their message onto you to be heavily moderated. And, as we saw with Parler, you're not allowed to go and just make your own. You know, that's the meme. They say, hey, You don't like Twitter's rules? Make your own Twitter. People make their own Twitter. It gets called these same people who have influence because of Twitter, right? Hit piece after hit piece after hit piece about how it's a white supremacist statement, unfettered speech. Oh, Nazis might talk on there. Apart from the fact, by the way, that Facebook is like live streamed more fucking atrocities than I've had hot dinners, and that is a sizable amount. No chance of Facebook getting shut down. No, here are the moderators. If you play ball with us, we'll pretend your platforms have no problems. All of these new platforms that could give other people lateral, we can move laterally and build up our following, they must be shut down. Because if I don't have a little blue check next to my name and I don't get to call you a fucking racist to 500,000 people and have them believe it whole cloth, then I don't want social media to exist. That is the mindset of the modern journalist. That's where we're at. And so, how do you think this story ends, ladies and gentlemen? How do you think this story ends? As I've told you many, many times, Twitter will bend over backwards to accommodate these people, right? So guess what Twitter did? Twitter, staring into the abyss of alternative platforms, building up alternative influence and upsetting the people they serve, the Twitterati, they actually implemented every type of feature from those alternative platforms into one. Verge very carefully only want to tell you about super follows. By the way, the dumbest idea of fucking super follow. What, like you're going to pay me for a fucking tweet? Thornton, of course, he's already talking to me about that. He's already thinking about that Skrilla. Me, I think that's fucking absurd, right? Absolutely absurd. But anyway, no, this is the real thing. Come down and look at the other features they've implemented. A new feature called communities, which is like Facebook groups. People can create and join groups around specific interests. Facebook... they want to get away from Facebook and its huge moderation problem, and they could be a particularly helpful tool on Twitter. But also, what they're doing is they've got hang on, where the fuck was it? It was definitely in here, or maybe it was in another article. Well, anyway, what they've also done is they've created now a part of Twitter where I can write my articles and put them on Twitter and put it behind a paywall, just like Substack. And they've done this new thing where it's exactly like Clubhouse. So basically, I can just start an audio town hall on Twitter now if I sign up to that service. So what they've done is they've basically said to the Twitterati, like, don't worry, you don't need to go anywhere. We'll keep your influence. We're going to actively try and go after these nasty websites. Please don't worry about it. You stay here. Spaces. Thank you. That's what it's called. Twitter Spaces. So now, they're going to actively go to war with these new and upcoming websites that offer very different services because the journals don't like it. Once again. And, of course, as we know, it's going to be moderated to shit in the sense that if you've got an idea, you've got something you want to share, you're not allowed to. No. If I wanted to host a town hall on Twitter about why Taylor Lorenz is fucking garbage, how long do you think I'm getting away with that for? Before I'm completely fucking deplatformed off Twitter. You can't even correct these blue checks without it being called fucking hate speech. By the way, another ridiculous growing trend I'm noticing is Twitch streamers screeching about people. Like, they say something bad on a social media platform, someone argues with them or corrects them if it's false. They say that's harassment and then mass report that person on Twitch or whatever. It's happened to me. I did a tweet about that guy who said white lives don't matter, right? And I just said very poggers. That was my entire take on it. And people mass flagged my channel saying I was abusing them. I didn't even tag them in it. That's where we're at. Now, mass flagging and harassment and things like that is against Twitch's rules. Yeah, watch this space. Let's see what happens first. Me getting my first ever ban just by having an immaculate history, or those people who are abusing the reporting tools on Twitch being held accountable for that. Let's see. Anyway, so journalism's a mess. America's a mess. It's all a fucking mess.